Well, good morning and good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this webinar all about our biggest cloud release to date. Today, we'll be focusing on AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud. And if you guys were paying attention to our version 11A launch, you guys will probably know a little bit about this already, but we've got a lot packed up for you today. So just want to say a few welcomes this morning. My name is Sam Nichols. I am Director of Public Cloud Product Marketing here at Veeam. So I get to kind of oversee all of the fun AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud things that we do across our platform. And I'm joined by my colleagues and friends. Firstly, Mr. Kirill Zverev. Kirill, a few welcome words from you this morning.
For sure. Thank you, Sam. Thanks everyone for joining. Very excited to be here. We have a great content coming up this afternoon. So my name is Kirill. I'm working together with Sam on anything cloud related at Veeam, specifically on Azure and Google Cloud platform. So again, excited to be here. Thanks for joining.
Absolutely. And then we've also got Mr. Andrei Zhelezko. Andrei, a few welcome words from you as well, please.
All right, thank you, Sam. Hello and thank you for joining, everyone. I'm excited to be here. We've got some good content, some great slides, and I'm going to show great demos. So everyone got, excited about our new iteration of the cloud products. So yeah, happy to be here.
Absolutely. Wouldn't be a Veeam webinar without an awesome demo and how we show that it just works. So Andre or AZ has got that all teed up for you. A few housekeeping rules before we do get started. Just wanted to let everyone know that you guys were muted upon entry. That's ultimately just to ensure that you guys have the best audio experience possible, but we always like to keep these webinars as interactive as possible, especially this virtual world that we've been living in for 2 years. So if you have any questions, comments, concerns, requests, over in the right-hand side of your screen, you will see the questions section. You can throw those in there. And then we've also got a number of polls built into the webinar today as well. And that's ultimately just to help us understand your environments better and also ask you direct questions on what do you want us to see as demo today, right? So you guys are getting to see what it is that you want to see. And then as always, we do record these as well. So if you have to dip out early for whatever reason, or you want to share it with a colleague after the fact, you'll be able to do so. We'll send those to you a couple of days after the show. So without further ado, I think we're just going to get started. And Kirill's going to kick us off with the first poll of the day. Kirill.
Yep. Thanks, Sam. So the first poll today, so we want this to be really interactive, right? So we're just going to run a few ones, and here's the first one. It's very simple, right? So who's running production in the public cloud today? You have two options on the screen. We're going to give you a couple of minutes to fill that in, and then we're going to move to the slides to talk more about this.
Absolutely. Looks like we've already got over 40% of you guys voting. It's always nice to see the dynamics of how people respond and how that lines up with some of the industry research, especially as when we do these webinars, we kind of do them regionally. So this is an EMEA focused webinar today as well. So we'll give it a few more seconds. I'm going to give it 45 seconds, so 5 more seconds, and then we'll close it. All right. And then we'll share with you the results. You guys should see that popping up on your screen now. So it looks like just a little bit over half of folks using public cloud for production today. Is that right, Veeam? Kirill?
Yep, seems like it. And we got, I think, about nice 80% of the audience to fill that in. So yeah, that gives us a really nice picture of what's going on with you guys in the public cloud. So let's jump to some data, which actually is coming from the very recent Veeam Cloud Trends report. You can find it in the Veeam.com resource library if you want more details. But here's what we got from our overall customer database. There was a big research going on for the last few months. So basically, you could see on the screen how long our respondents been using the public cloud in productions, and you can see that about 41% been using that for more than 24 months, so a little bit over 2 years, and the rest, right? So that's going to be about 59% been running production in the public cloud somewhere between 6 to 12 months on average, right? So that means that a lot of our customers, and maybe, you know, quite a few of you, as we saw on the poll, already been tinkering with the public cloud for some time now, right? And if we go to the next slide, we'll see, you know, how the kind of the future looks to our customers in that regard, right? So again, this is from our public cloud trends report, and you can see again how our own customer base kind of evaluates the portion of the public cloud in their own kind of environment in the next few years, right? So if you kind of read this from left to right, you would see that obviously you see physical service being on decline, right? So coming from 2020 estimations, pre-COVID estimations to 2023, you can clearly see it's declining from 38% to 24%, being that the portion of physical service in the data center. And then you can see the rapid, you know, uptick when it comes to public cloud portion on the right side of the screen, right? Again, the rapid growth from 32% to 52%. And then we have virtual machines, which is probably the core portion of production workloads in the data centers today, being sort of kind of, you know, kind of in decline, but in reality, this is just stagnant, right? This is not changing. So what this tells you is that, you know, more and more companies switching to public cloud as being, you know, one of the significant portions of their production workload. But that doesn't mean they go to the public cloud 100%, right? Many customers of Veeam, and probably many of you, kind of switching to this hybrid model, hybrid cloud model, right? Where they're going to have a big portion of something of their workload in the on-premise as the virtualized environments, but then a significant portion of some of their workload, you know, maybe some testing environments, maybe some DevOps environment in the public cloud. So, I mean, this, all of that kind of gives a birth to the demand for, you know, for a specific tool, for a solution that will allow to kind of manage this mixed hybrid cloud or even a multi-cloud environment. So that's what we're going to talk about today, right? How Veeam kind of solves this, how Veeam can provide you with tools to successfully manage this kind of environment. Next slide, please.
Absolutely. You know, I think that this slide is just really interesting. Like we think hybrid cloud's full speed now, but it just continues to just accelerate, right? And I think that's a number of factors. COVID certainly had an impact on the adoption of public cloud. You know, we weren't able to go into the office and manage our infrastructure that we had within our data centers anymore. If something were to go wrong and we couldn't physically go in, what are we going to do? So that certainly kind of drove people towards the public cloud, where someone else manages the infrastructure and we can just access that over an internet connection. But you know, the cloud vendors have just been, you know, developing and delivering services and scalability and security at such a massive clip. It is making the public cloud a much more viable place to run these production workloads, right? Even, you know, high performance production workloads, even ones that have certain compliance requirements around them, those security principles are built into the cloud. So it's, again, just super interesting to see this. I think one of the things that doesn't necessarily resonate well with the cloud is ownership and control of your data, right? So this is, you're essentially putting your data on someone else's infrastructure, and it can be quite difficult to get it back off as your strategy changes. So, you know, we're going to dive into that a little bit later in the webinar, and how this latest release kind of brings that full circle with the Veeam platform and the 3 major hyperscalers. Because it absolutely is our biggest cloud release to date. I mean, we've been launching cloud-focused technologies for, I mean, it's got to be more than 10 years now, when we started with like Veeam Cloud Connect. But you know, this year, each and every single year, we deliver more and more cloud-focused technologies, right? So we started with like direct restore. We include the ability to back up to AWS and Azure, the ability to protect Microsoft 365, right? And then we've got the ability to protect these public clouds itself. And then next year, we're going to be delivering Veeam Backup for Salesforce. You know, all, again, cloud-focused solutions to make sure that you can take the Veeam that, you you love, that you trust to just work on premises, and apply that to any environment, including those ones in the cloud. So the latest release was centered around Veeam Backup and Replication version 11a. And don't let the alphabetical release fool you. It absolutely was a big one, but there were multiple subcomponents of that, which included these 3 cloud-native products. So we did launch Veeam Backup for AWS version 4, Microsoft Azure version 3, and Google Cloud Platform version 2. And you can absolutely consume those as standalone offerings by themselves. So you have no other Veeam software in your environment. You could just utilize one of these solutions, and that's going to give you a backup and recovery solution that's purpose-built for that cloud that allows you to back up and recover within that cloud. But they're also all integrated with Veeam Backup and Replication. So if you are using Veeam Backup and Replication and you have Veeam Universal licenses, these are all automatically integrated with Veeam Backup and Replication. So Kira, why don't you tell us a little bit about the benefits of that?
Absolutely. So right, as Sam already mentioned, right, so if for example, if you've been running Veeam Backup Replication for a while and you're already aware with that solution, or if you look into, if you're looking at Veeam for the first time and you're kind of looking into that hybrid cloud model, you can just take Veeam Backup Replication, which is our flagship product, right, and you'll be able to deploy and manage, workloads, backups for your public cloud workloads through that one single console, right? So here we're talking about the true cloud mobility, and we're talking about true kind of, single management platform, which is delivered through Veeam Backup Replication, right? So as we know from many recent research, very few companies again just go for one specific public cloud provider, right? We know that in average, every company at least works with about 2 cloud providers at the same time, for different reasons, maybe compliance, maybe security. You don't want to put all of your eggs into one basket, so to speak. So again, we recognize that, we appreciate that, and we as Veeam, we always strive to give the maximum flexibility and agility to our customers, right? We kind of trying to avoid any potential vendor lock-in situation as much as possible. So with Veeam Backup Replication, we're offering 2 significant benefits that will allow you for true, as I told already, a true cloud mobility and a true data portability within any public cloud provider, within on-premises, right, with any type of workloads that you prefer your data to be on, right? So we have a unified backup portable backup format, right? Veeam backup file that you can move through Veeam Backup Replication through one single console, onto public cloud, back on premises, to physical workload, to virtualized workloads. You can put it into AWS S3 bucket, you can move it to Azure if you want to, and I mean that will be all one single backup file. Then we also have Veeam Universal License, which again, a unified single license file, which again will work on any platform that you're kind of working with through Veeam Backup Replication. So, if you want to host it on-prem, that's the same licensing model as you would host it, for example, your backups files in Microsoft Azure. And again, this all available through Veeam Backup Replication, a single console, a single management solution, so you don't have to go and deploy different backup solutions on each specific platform that you work on. So yeah, so that's what we offer through Veeam Backup Replication, and that's available through trial, which you can try for 30 days with no feature limitations. So I think we're about to go into our second poll, and that's actually going to be a question about public cloud platforms that you use. So Sam, would you please run us through that one?
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is, again, just about seeing like which of these major platforms do you use. You do have the option to choose other as well. So if you're using something like an IBM cloud or a sovereign cloud, a Veeam cloud and service provider, absolutely feel free to throw that in there. I do just want to apologize. Kirill, has my screen been going black randomly?
I think it did a couple of times.
Yeah.
But it was just about like for a few seconds. It's been showing all right for me most of the time.
Seems
But
as
yeah,
though if it's staying on the single slide for too long, it's blacking out. So I apologize everyone there for that happening. But if I just move it back to the previous slide, it comes right back up. So apologies for that. All right, we've given it 45 seconds again. Let's close the poll and share the results. These ones are a little less surprising, I would say, for EMEA, where we typically see that AWS is the 800-pound gorilla in the room from leading the hyperscale public cloud provider market space, right? They have pretty much 50% of the share globally. But as we turn to look at that just in EMEA only, Azure is certainly the leader in that space. So again, just like a little less surprising, I would say. So it certainly seems that Azure is the cloud of choice for you guys. And that should hopefully give Andre a little bit of a hint as to which of these environments he should start getting ready, because some of the questions are around which of these environments do you want us to demo. So I think it's probably going to be Azure, safe to say. But while he's getting that ready, I do just want to refresh everyone's memory just kind of around what our cloud native solutions are capable of doing. So of course they are a backup and recovery solution, and no surprise, they are able to back up and recover your environments running in the cloud. And we absolutely do that in a cloud native manner. So just to quickly elaborate on what we mean by cloud native, it is that we are able to leverage those native technologies and the scalability, security, and cost models of the cloud to deliver a data protection solution that is best suited to that cloud. And part of those native technologies that we use are native snapshots. And snapshots are great because they're going to provide us very, very low RPOs, and they're going to provide us very low RTOs. But snapshots shouldn't be the be-all, end-all of your data protection solution, especially if we're talking about something that is in production and means anything to your business, because ultimately they're not stored independently of the disk that they're protecting, and it represents to us a single point of failure. So what we want to be able to do is actually back up from those snapshots. And we'll get into the image-based backup from those snapshots in just a second. But snapshots is again great for those low RPOs and low RTOs. But you can take snapshots using the AWS console, using the Azure console manually. You just have to click a few buttons and there's your snapshot done. So what's the need for Veeam to do that for you? And I think automation is ultimately the key. If we are talking about an environment with tens, hundreds, thousands, we've seen environments where there's tens of thousands of virtual machines in them, manually creating snapshots for all of those is just not feasible, right? Even if we're dealing with 10, doing those at the right time in line with your serverless level objectives is just going to be a pain. And that's just about the creation of the snapshot. What about the management of the snapshot, where it's stored, how long it's stored for, and then the ultimate deletion of that? So we wrap everything up with that policy-based automation, and Andre is going to show you in the demo just how easy it is to create these policies, apply them to machines either on a one-by-one basis, based on the account, based on the tag that they live in. So you can ultimately just set it, forget it, and probably not have to touch it again until you have to perform a recovery. The snaps and backups that we create are application consistent, so you do have that zero data loss backup and recovery. We can leverage VSS for things like that. We can do pre and post scripts. And backup is, of course, nothing without recovery, the ability to recover that data. So there's multiple recovery options when it comes to this as well. You can do a full restore of that virtual machine, volume, database, file system. You can do that full restore in place or out of place of the machine that was running in the cloud. And then for those of you that are interested in or familiar with Veeam, you'll know about our Veeam Explorers, right? So it's this e-discovery search-like functionality to go and find individual files and folders within those backups and recover those as well, right? So maybe it's not the entire machine that just needs recovering, it's just that individual file or folder that the CEO is looking for. You can do that and ultimately have a much better RTOs because it's just a small little piece of data that you've got to recover. And then of course we've got instant recovery as well. So instant VM recovery is the ability to instantiate that virtual machine on premises and stream the data out of the object storage bucket within the cloud. So if a recovery option within the cloud isn't immediately available, or you just want to do that instant VM recovery, you can have access to those services available immediately. And again, we just stream that data outside of the object storage bucket. So moving on to cost optimization. So I mentioned that we do take backups as well as snapshots. So we take an image-based backup of that snapshot. And one of the primary purposes behind doing that is all around optimizing cost, because you see that the snapshots that you take are stored on those disks, those volumes, and those are some of the most expensive storage available in the public cloud. We do have some slides to give you a compare and contrast, but the image-based backup can be tiered across multiple object storage classes, which have much more cost-effective options available, ranging down into fractions of a cent. So if you want the ability to retain data for any really period of time that exceeds a couple of weeks or a month, being able to do that on object storage is ultimately going to help you meet those service level objectives from a compliance or retention perspective without blowing the budget out of the water. We definitely see customers, I've seen customers that are literally spending hundreds or were spending hundreds of thousands of dollars every single month on snapshots. That's crazy. So moving on, we do have a cost calculator as well. Again, Andre will show you that, but ultimately, while you're creating your policy based on list prices of that cloud provider, we're going to tell you how much it's going to cost you every single month to protect those workloads. And again, that gives you that proactive foresight into aligning, retention requirements with budgets. It means you don't have any of those nasty surprises at the end of the month in terms of like storage, networking, and compute that backups consumed. You have that proactive, intelligent foresight into how much your backup policy is going to cost. And the final piece is around dynamic workers. So these are data movers, like proxies that we spin up on virtual machines in the cloud to perform tasks. So those tasks might be creating that image-based backup and tearing it off onto object storage. That task might be file level recovery, right? We don't necessarily want those machines running 24/7 if they're not doing something, because again, in the cloud, you pay for every ounce of compute network storage that you consume, and if they're always running, you're paying for it. So we make them dynamic, right? So they're automatically instantiated and terminated as and when they need to perform that task. So you are only paying for what you need. Kira, why don't you walk us through a bit about security?
Absolutely, Sam. So security, right? That's a key, that's a key concern for I'm pretty sure for many of you at the call today, right? And for any business out there, right? There are many threats that's kind of just waiting to happen to your data, to your backups, right? That can be ransomware, right? That can be some malicious activity, that can be bad actors within your company or outside of your company, and then that can be just a very simple human error, human mistake, right? And there are a lot of misconceptions also as well around public cloud being less secure or unsafe when it comes to storing your backups or data. But all the data shows, and all the kind of investments from companies like Microsoft and Google and AWS, they show that when it comes to infrastructure security, public cloud might be as secure or even maybe more secure than some of the some on-premises infrastructures, but that doesn't really change the situation when it comes to, again, bad actors, human mistake, or or ransomware attack, right? And in that regard, the threats you face within the public cloud are pretty much the same which you would face in the on-prem, right? So Veeam's mission here is basically to provide you with tools and guidance and all the flexible options to make sure you can build all the possible kind of walls around your backups which are being within the public cloud, as well as you can do today within on-prem, right? So we strive to kind of provide you with the same amount of tools to kind of make sure that your backups have all the added layers of security within the public cloud as they do now on-prem, right? So we do provide quite a list of features, and we're just going to go through them within that slide, right? So first of all, we provide options to isolate your backup, right? So that's the first rule of how you store your backup. You don't put it into the same production environment, where you run all of your workloads, right? You put it somewhere, and that's the same principle as an on-prem, right? I give you an option to move it to another account, another subscription, or to another region, right? As it's dependent on the kind of the public cloud you operate, right? Then we have the extensive role-based access control possibilities, right? So again, we integrate with different role support service within Azure or AWS, right, for true platform-aware security, right? We'll walk through that further on slides, but we essentially give you ability to assign up to 3 different roles, right? So to provide access to your backups within the public cloud on need-to-know basis only. All of that doesn't go without an encryption. And again, right, so we do have encryption for all your backups on-prem. We provide the same capabilities within the public cloud. We integrate with native AWS or Azure services, for example, like AWS KMS or Azure Key Vault, so that you can additionally encrypt your backups. For example, you put them into different region, you provide a a certain access only kind of or read only access to your backups, but then you also encrypt them, right? So in worst case scenario, even if they get to wrong hands, they'll be encrypted. That's another layer of security for you against any malicious activity. And of course we have MFA, right? Multi-factor authentication, again, to protect access using you can use a second source of validation to get access to your backups. So all of that, again, just to make sure that in addition to all the security measures that exist within the infrastructure by Microsoft or AWS or Google, we also provide you with native, or proprietary tools to make sure you can build and, and train your staff to make sure there is as many layers of security to backups as possible. And now we go to the next set of features, and here again we're going to talk about hybrid and multi-cloud models, right? We talked a lot about how Veeam Backup Replication provides you this true cloud portability, this single management single console management option from our flagship products. And this is essentially all about one platform concept, right? So that you can centrally manage your cloud backup with the rest of your environment, being that SaaS, being that maybe even Kubernetes environment, being that on-prem, of course, physical or virtual, any hypervisor that you would choose. Again, we are very platform agnostic. We give you the single backup format, the single licensing model, so that you can kind of you just can protect your data wherever you want, move it wherever you want, and we don't charge you for that, right? So there are maybe some egress costs from the public cloud provider, but Veeam don't charge you over that additionally, right? So again, you get in the true cloud mobility. You can backup, recover, migrate across any platform. So again, if you want to start playing with the public cloud, you can use our single backup format to easily migrate workloads to Azure or to AWS. If you want to move some of that workloads back to on-prem, that happens, right? For example, you want certain workloads back to on-prem for compliance reasons, or maybe you don't have staff to manage it on public cloud. You can move it back on-prem. That's very easy, and you can do that the same in any sort of DR scenario, right? For any sort of disaster recovery purpose. And again, universal license, so that simple portable licensing format to easily protect any workload, right? You have the single, sort of my account interface, and then you have access to all of your workloads with single licensing format. And for example, you purchase a certain amount of licenses, and then you decide to move certain amount of workloads to public cloud, right? You don't have to purchase any additional licenses. You don't have to sign any additional contracts. You just assign this, the same licenses you already purchased to the workloads you would like to move to the cloud. And again, if you want them back, that's very easy to move them back to on-prem and then use again the very same licenses you already purchased. So very simple, very intuitive kind of model that we present with Veeam Backup Replication. And now that we kind of overviewed all the general features, I'm happy to move to what's new, right? So that's, again, probably what have you been waiting all to hear, and we're just going to talk about what's going on in the Veeam Backup Replication V11a, right? So first of all, we added some new services that are now being natively protected using native kind of formats and within each specific public cloud vendor. So we expanded our native backup and recovery to Amazon EFS and Azure SQL databases, right? In terms of Azure SQL, we're talking both about managed SQL instance and and Azure SQL as a service. So for both of these services, we provide policy-based automation, right? So just to ease the management, eliminate any kind of manual scripting, eliminate any kind of agents, need to protect these workloads. And again, we provide the same fast and flexible recovery options for these services, right? And again, if we talk about Azure SQL, for example, you have options to restore database to the same location or to a different location, and there are again policy-based integration included, so you can kind of just make sure it's very easy for you to protect these newly added services. And now we're gonna go to the next poll. And again, we know already that many of you just using Azure, but we still want to give you a choice of which new service supported you would like AZ to demo, right? Very easy, 2 options. We're gonna give you a couple of minutes. Again, I'm gonna get nice 80% of the audience to vote. I'm pretty sure we're gonna get a clear winner with this one, but still always interesting to see how exactly the distribution works out.
Yeah, it's looking that way.
Yeah, I guess I won't bet my
People
money
left
on this
voting could
EFS.
swing this one, so let's call. I'll share the results with you guys. It's very similar to what we saw previously, right? It's Azure. So 85% of you would like to see how we back up Microsoft Azure SQL. So I'm going to transition you over to Andre right now.
That would be awesome.
It's coming your way, man.
All right. Can I have a confirmation that you can see what I'm sharing?
Yep.
All right, that's cool. So what you can see, guys, right now is Veeam Backup for Microsoft Azure. And this is our product, something that Sam and Kirill was talking about. So the policies, it's kind of it's not going to be an entrance point for you whenever you actually access the product, because you'll go to the overview, because you'll go to Azure Marketplace, you'll deploy it from there, but then it's not the purpose of this particular demonstration, because it would take you 5 seconds or to find a solution and 5 minutes to get it deployed. But after all, you will have an IP address and you'll access it, and you'll be able to actually configure and manage things with it. So what I'm going to show you that's really kind of a new in version 3 is the gents were talking about today. So the policies, there is a new tab which has the name of Azure SQL, and you can access it and you can configure the SQL policy, the policy to protect the SQL databases and servers that you have deployed in your Azure account. And well, I already have one of the policies over here. I'm not going to create a new one, but let's actually access this one and let's see what is inside and how you can configure that. So the sources, after the policy info and the friendly name that you'll have to provide, you'll have to specify the region where you have the resources that you would like to protect. And by resources, again, we mean the SQL databases and SQL servers. So in my case, it's East US region. I'm going to cancel it for now and click on resources. So you can see that I can protect everything that is belonging to that region, or I can specify the database or a SQL server. I hope you can see the 2 of the options available here. And then whether I need some granularity of any sorts, I could have selected a particular one, and you can see that I've got 1 database and 1 server added to this policy. And yeah, basically that's that. That's the main important question is to get the scope of the data that you want to protect, and then to make sure that all the processing options and schedule and cost estimation and everything is configured according to your needs. Since we're talking about the processing options, you can see that I can process database using the production server, which is the Veeam Backup for Azure as the whole server, or I can use a staging server as something that would help me to kind of to redirect the traffic and to help me with data protection. So I have already prepared the SQL server and have defined it for this policy. I'm going to click next and going to show you the schedule, multiple, the multiple schedules available, because you can clearly edit the daily, weekly, monthly, and yearly retention and define them for how much time the data should be retained according to your needs. And as you can see here that I've got one backup per day happening at 10 p.m. And yeah, that policy should be retaining my data for 7 days. I could definitely, increase this number, because it's really important to see how it would result in the cost estimation increase, because obviously, all the operations that we perform against the cloud is going to have some impact on how much you'll pay at the end for that operation to happen. Then you can select the repository which you would like to use for that backup. So I've got a couple of repositories created, and yeah, I'm just go with this one. Okay, so I'm going to apply this and go to the cost estimation. You can see that I've got some of the projected estimation as of a monthly cost, how much I'll pay at the end of the month for this policy to actually run. Okay, let's click next and let's go to summary. That's all right, everything's configured. I can test configuration. Okay, so the test would be launching in a couple of seconds, and you can see that it's being checked, which is a good sanity thing to just to make sure that your settings are the adequate ones. All right, I'm going to click on finish, and to show that that policy was running for some time. So you can see that I've got some errors, some success, and if you click on errors, you'll be able to see that there was something related to my license, but never mind that. So the latest run of the policy resulted with a success. So now I can go to the protected data, and you can see that there is a new tab as well, Azure SQL, because it's not just virtual machines anymore. That's Azure SQL right now. And you can see, so for my database, SQL 01, I've got 7 recovery points as for the retention that I specified previously. And you can see that I've got some of them available for, well, actually all of them available for me. But then I can basically click on any of them and click restore database, select the account on behalf of which the restore should happen. Could be this one, the default account, and then to restore the original location or new location. And obviously new location is something that everyone wants to see. And then the settings, because we're going to use the the staging server for that operation, and it could be different region if I had the server in different region, but never mind that. So anyways, that's a recovery procedure, and it's pretty straightforward. After that, I'm going to just confirm the staging server and can click next, and the database would be restored in a couple of minutes. So this is new functionality in Veeam Backup for Microsoft Azure version 3, and I would definitely recommend you to try this one, because pretty easy, pretty straightforward. And now back to you guys.
Awesome. Bringing the ball back. While it comes back my way, I do want to get a question Norman posted in the chat, which is Microsoft is a fully managed platform as a service. Microsoft automates backups and geo redundancy, and he's struggling to get the value proposal for Veeam. I want to make sure that you fully understand that there is no automated backup within Microsoft Azure. There are certain geo redundancies, absolutely. And you can architect various degrees of resiliency within your Azure environment, utilizing single VMs for like 95% uptime. You can go all the way up to like region pairs for, I think it's like 99.999% uptime. But that is via replication, and replication does not replace backup. I hope everyone understands why that is. But ultimately, if you have a security event, a deletion of data, whatever it might be, that's just going to be replicated over to the other region or the other machine. So you need that backup. And then if we want to talk about it from an Azure SQL perspective, depending on one of the 3 tiers of Azure SQL that you choose, Microsoft, yes, will back that data up, but only for a maximum of 30 days. So if you have any retention requirements beyond 30 days, that's on the highest tier. You have to go for another solution to do that. And the final piece that I want to just throw in there is, if there was no need to protect Azure, backup Azure, why do Azure have a backup product that they also charge for that's not built in for free? So just wanted to, again, kind of get around that.
And all great points, Sam. And I just wanted to add on that, right? We probably should have brought our good old responsibility model slides as well into the mix. But again, you can easily look it up, right? So every big public cloud hyperscaler, including Azure, they do have this what they call the responsibility model. And if you take a look at that, you would clearly see that every vendor, including Microsoft, they clearly outline that data is your responsibility, right? So they do have responsibility for the infrastructure, again, for the resiliency that Sam mentioned. But if something to happen with the data itself, I mean, the random deletion or maybe, exposure because, someone didn't set up the security protocol correctly and the data get lost or compromised, Microsoft clearly outlines they're not responsible for that, right? And again, if something like that happens, you would need to have that backup to get the data restored. So yeah, just wanted to throw it out there again. Responsibility model, you can easily Google that on Microsoft side or AWS side, but that's just very important to understand for anyone who would like to to work with the public cloud.
There's a ton of other questions coming through, and I want to make sure that I get to them. So I'm just going to go through them now. So Mika asks, from cost and redundancy, let's say a Microsoft data center burnt or went down, where should we deploy Veeam Backup for Microsoft Azure if it's backing up Azure VMs? So we do have the opportunity to do cross-region, cross-subscription backup and recovery with Veeam Backup for Microsoft Azure. So you could deploy that in a Microsoft Azure data center on one side of the world, and it would be responsible for protecting Azure data in another data center on the other side of the world. So you do have that opportunity there, Mika. So that's kind of like the cross region, and it also has visibility into different subscriptions as well. So that's kind of one of those security boundaries that Kirill was talking about earlier. So we absolutely have that opportunity to do that. Paul asks, can the cloud backups be managed from the Veeam Backup and Replication console, one central location to manage all backups? Yes. So all of AWS, Azure, GCP products are integrated with Veeam Backup and Replication, and you can manage them from within that console, and Andre will demo that for you. How can we calculate a group of machines cost? That's from George. So George, great question. If you just build your policy to include multiple machines, you might just go through and manually select machines. You might apply that to machines based on tags. You might just want to back up all machines within a specific subscription or region. When it does the calculation, it will calculate it for all of those machines. Do we have immutable backups in Azure storage yet, asks Chris. Great question. So what I want to say here is the limitation is not on the Veeam side right now. It's on the Microsoft side. Essentially, they do their object lock, which is the immutability piece, at the bucket level. We need it to be done at the object level. So, we have a fantastic partnership with Microsoft. Our R&D teams are hard at work at making that happen, and that's for backups that you might tier from on-premises to the cloud. It might be for these native backups, but we are absolutely on trying to do that. Frederick asks, can you replicate to another subscription, but can you replicate to another provider, i.e. AWS? That is not possible right now. All right, so I think I've got a number of those questions answered right now. Some of the other questions have been answered in the chat function, but keep them coming. This is great, guys. So next piece, I want to talk about lowest cost archive storage. So this is the ability to now leverage Amazon S3 Glacier, S3 Glacier Deep Archive, Azure Blob Archive, and Google Cloud Archive storage as a target for the backups of your cloud native backup. So yes, we did that with version 11 for your on-premises workloads with the scale out backup repository. This is now available for the native backups. And I'm going to kind of show you why this is so important. Because let's just take a look at Amazon list prices. We've done a lot of Microsoft stuff today, so let's look at the Amazon ones. EBS snapshots, these are the snapshots that live on the EBS volumes, are 5 cents per gig per month. And it doesn't sound like a lot, but if you're dealing with a machine of any size or multiple machines or any kind of retention beyond a week, that gets very expensive very, very quickly. Now, if we compare and contrast that to their different object storage levels like S3, S3 Glacier, S3 Glacier Deep Archive, those go down from 5 cents to 2.3 cents, all the way down to fractions of a cent per month. So to put that into practice, let's say we've got to retain data for 12 months and I've got a 100 gigabyte machine and all I do is rely on those snapshots. It's a simple bit of math. 100 gigabytes times 12 months times 5 cents is $60 per year. Now, that doesn't sound like, again, a lot, but again, imagine dealing with that with multiple machines or even larger machines. But to compare and contrast, like if we were to just tear that off onto Amazon S3 after 1 month, we pretty much half our cost right away to $30.30. And because this is an image-based backup and we can leverage Veeam's 2-to-1 compression on this, you can pretty much half that cost again and get it down to $17.65. And that is like the hottest version of Amazon or AWS object storage. You start to tear that off onto like S3 Glacier after 3 months, and then after 6 months, you put that on Glacier Deep Archive. With that Veeam compression, you get it down to $8 per month, right? And that's again still retaining monthly or daily snapshots for a month within Amazon EBS. So $8 is a lot more palatable than 60. We were going to have a demo, but we're kind of running up on time with all of these questions that were coming through as well. So I'm just going to kind of move it on to some of the security pieces. Kirill, do you want to walk us through some of the new security features?
Absolutely. And again, just for the sake of time, I'm going to run quickly through this since I already mentioned some of these supported services. Again, in addition to all the security measures we already mentioned, right, we just newly added support for native Amazon KMS and Azure Key Vault services, right? So that's just so that you can provide additional layer of security by encrypting your backup data using these already named services, and also added extensive support for role-based access control. So if we can go to the next slide, I'm going to just walk you through the roles that we have supporting, right? So we have 3 roles that you can operate with: portal admin, portal operator, and restore operator. And you can clearly see the difference between them. And again, we just kind of want to talk about this access when you provide on the only need to know basis, right? So we have the portal admin, obviously you have the full access to the appliance, including configuration. Probably a very few people have to have this kind of access. And then you have, on the other hand, you have the restore operator, right? This person can have access only to restoration of protected workloads. And again, this is probably what you would give to a bigger portion of the team, so that they won't have access to the appliance or the infrastructure itself, but only to restore. And then you have in the middle the portal operator, again, a bit wider access to the infrastructure and managing components, but again, no full access to the appliance. So with these 3 roles, you can have a very flexible type of policy of who can access what. And again, just to make sure you have these additional layers of security built in addition to the infrastructure resiliency. So I think we can go further.
Absolutely. I mean, this is just the one platform and limited options that you discussed earlier, Kirill. So all of these AWS, Azure, GCP products are all now centralized and integrated with Veeam Backup and Replication. So you just have that one single console to protect your data, no matter where it is: physical, virtual, on premises, up in the cloud. We also introduced direct restore to the Google Cloud platform. So now we have that direct recovery capability of any Veeam backup to AWS, Azure, and GCP. And that's that cloud mobility piece that Kirill was talking about, right? And I'm not going to spend too much longer on this piece. Because I want to get you to the demo, so AZ can show you the demo. But this is kind of what it looks like from an architecture standpoint. On-prem, AWS, Azure, GCP, all the stuff that we can protect, and the fact that you can move them across all of these. And that's hugely important, that you retain that control, that ownership of your data, so that once it lands in a cloud provider's platform, it is not locked into that platform. You can bring that back on premises. You can push that off to another cloud. And that's massively important because we asked in our data protection report, what does modern look like in 2021? And you can see here, ability to move workloads from one cloud to the other, ability to move workloads from on-premises to the cloud, ability to standardize protection, right? Centralized protection of all of your environments. Massively, massively important. And V11A delivers that for all those big hyperscalers. And I did mention just a second ago, bringing workloads from the cloud back on premises. Isn't that a bit antithetical to hybrid cloud acceleration? No, right? We asked in our cloud protection trends report, have you ever brought a workload from the cloud back on premises? And almost half the folks, actually, yeah, it is more than half the folks say, yes, they have. Right? Some of the folks developed the workload in the cloud and already planned to run it within the production's data center. Veeam will let you do that, right? It's not locked into the cloud. Some people did migrate a workload from on-premises to the cloud, but decided to bring it back on premises. Again, that might be cost, it might be performance, it might be compliance. But again, Veeam allows you to do that. And then a smaller percentage say, yep, we leveraged the cloud for a disaster. And then when everything back on premises was good to go, we brought it back. Okay, it was, again, kind of planned. But again, Veeam gives you that option. So I'm going to turn you back to Andre to give you the demo of that from the Veeam Backup and Replication console. And that ball is coming back to you, Andre.
All right, I'm back with you. Okay, so let's talk about Veeam Backup and Replication, which is a central management piece that that could unite all of the cloud native consoles all together. Because I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with it, but this is our flagship product, and typically it is being deployed on premises. So usually one of the physical servers in your data centers or one of the virtual machines in the data center, and stuff like that. So what you can do once you deploy it is you can go to manage servers and to see what is what kind of the relations it has to some of the different servers across your organization in your environment. What you can see here that I've got some VMware hosts added, Microsoft Hyper-V cluster added, and what about the rest? The rest is AWS, Microsoft Azure, and GCP. I hope that you can see it, guys. Okay. So why is it important that under the managed servers, you can see everything and you can have everything? And what we mean by AWS, Microsoft Azure, and GCP. Let's click on Microsoft Azure. You can see this is my appliance being deployed in Azure. And now I have a kind of a central management view at this appliance. What I can see now, I can click on Home and click External Repository, and I can see some of the backups that were done by this appliance. For example, that SQL database that I was talking about, or the Azure VM that I didn't show, but yeah, you have to trust me on this one. So I can see them here from the on-premises console. And for example, if I click on the VM, I can right-click on it. You can see that I've got plenty of options. I can instantly recover it to virtual infrastructure, to my VMware vSphere or Microsoft Hyper-V. I can also migrate it to, for example, AWS or to GCP, and essentially pull the data out of Azure and yeah, just push it to like some other clouds, AWS and GCP. So by doing that, that would help me to ensure that there is a whole cloud mobility of my data and the data portability. And within my hybrid data center that I'm running, I'm just happy to to have this opportunity to move the data around whenever I see this fits my policies. And beside of that, there would be also something to show you that, yeah, for example, for the backup job, I can already point you to the wizard that would allow me to go to my AWS or Azure or GCP and create the policies for VMs and SQL in case of Azure. For AWS, it could be the the EC2 instances, RDS databases, and EFS shares. So yeah, kind of a central management piece, uniting everything together and providing me a single, kind of a single pane of glass. I'm pretty sure that you hate this expression, but here it is. So yeah, all is good. And whenever you need to perform some unique operation, anything like in particular, such as, I don't know, the cloud repository configuration, you should access the particular console that I was showing to you. For example, Veeam Backup for AWS or Veeam Backup for Microsoft Azure or Veeam Backup for GCP. And then from this particular console, because there might be some specific operations to the cloud, or there might be a thing that you are just using one cloud and not using anything else. So we're good with that scenario. So it's up to you. It's all flexible, and probably the most important thing is that you can push the data around your hybrid infrastructure. I will leave you with that. So back to you, Sam.
Awesome, thanks for that, AZ, and I hope that answers a number of questions that we did get through here. So I'm just bringing the ball back now. So that kind of brings our webinar to an end. We've got a few minutes left, so if you do have any more questions, please make sure to put them in there. Gregor, I know that there's been, looks like I'm not even showing my screen right now, which would be helpful. There we go. Anyway, Gregor, I know that you've got some questions about running Microsoft SQL on an Azure VM versus using Azure SQL Managed. So what I'll do is I'll have one of our SEs reach out to you, and that will help you get that one figured out there. Okay, Tony, yep, no integration with Veeam Backup for Microsoft 365 just yet, but we wouldn't be a Veeam webinar if we didn't give you a great offer at the end. So all of these things that you saw today and more, all of our cloud native backup is available to you guys for free, unlimited coverage for 30 days. And we're also going to give you $250 in AWS or Azure credits. So once you deploy that proxy, that appliance within the respective cloud provider, we'll give you those $250 in credits. Try it, because there's nothing like playing around with it yourself. We can talk about it all day and show you demos, but just get stuck in, get your hands on it. And we'll also give you 25% off when you buy 12 months as well. I believe that this QR code has actually expired now. So there's the short link at the bottom, v.am/free-AWS. It does also include Azure, and you can register for that. We'll send you the trial license keys for the Veeam Universal license, or the standalone licenses, just to protect the stuff in AWS, Azure that we spoke about before. And again, once that appliance is deployed, we send you the 250 in credits. And that's ultimately just to help offset the costs of the hyperscale provider while you are using it. So that kind of brings us to a close, pretty much right on time. So I want to say thank you to everyone for joining us today. Really appreciated it. Tons of questions, lots of people answering on the polls, so appreciate your interaction. Hope you found that all of the information valuable, and I look forward to seeing you on a webinar soon.
Same here. Thanks everyone for joining. So yeah, thanks again.